What's up, people? We're back with Dos Guiris Sin Guia. How's it going? This is Andrew, and we've got Mike on the podcast per usual. So today we're going to hit you with a topic that I think unanimously is considered very, very difficult. And I'm pleased to give you a way of thinking about this that should dissolve some of those concerns and difficulties, because Mike has a really interesting take on the approach to Ser and Estar. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the more concrete rules as the podcast rolls along. So let's begin. We're back and we're going to be talking about Ser and Estar. This is a very complicated subject for most beginners, but I know that I've been here for 2.5 years, studied the language at length, and still find it challenging. So we think that it would be beyond useful to kind of dive into this topic and give you several ways of looking at how to determine whether or not the word ser or estar, the verb, is appropriate. All right, so I'm going to be taking a back seat in the beginning, turning it over to Mike, and then pop back in to tell you guys a little bit more about the rules, so to speak. But Mike has a fascinating way of looking at this. So, my man, would you enlighten the people?
Okay. So the way that I learned about the differences between Ser and Estar, at first, way back in high school Spanish, shout out to Senor Efe and Senora Libro, my two best Spanish teachers I've ever had in my life. So the way that I first learned about the differences between Ser and Estar, way back in high school Spanish, was basically with lists. They would do acronyms of, in all of these circumstances or these contexts, these are when you use ser. In all of these contexts, these are when you use estar. And for me, that was always a lot more difficult. For me, it's a very roundabout way to think about what word to use. So if I were speaking and I were in a sentence and I have to come up to say the word is, what I had to do at first was kind of go down the list and be like, what circumstance does this fall under? And then I'd be like, oh, this is a ser word. Oh, this is an estar word. And it was always a lot more difficult because I have to go through all of those different thoughts. Those are a lot of different thoughts to go through. But for me, this kind of goes back to a general thought I have about Spanish, is the way that it's taught in schools, that it is easy to teach sometimes, is not always the best way to teach it. What I wanted to say is there's an easier way to think about it. There's kind of a shortcut. And for me, that's basically understanding it as a broader concept rather than rote memorizing all of these particular circumstances. And that works with not only ser versus estar, but tons of other concepts in Spanish too. But today we're going to focus on ser versus estar. So anyway, I'm going to go back to the lists. And this is what Andres and I were talking in our little pre-chat about the topic for today. He found a list online, and this is very similar to a list that I learned originally.
One of these shitty lists that you find.
One of the lists.
That's what Andres
some list in a book.
Afterwards.
Well, listen, it is useful to a certain extent, but in other, it's not the most useful. But anyway, I'm going to show this list. So this is the acronym PLACE for position, location, action, condition, or emotion. These are all contexts that you use the verb estar. And then here is the acronym DOCTOR. Description, occupation, characteristic, time and date, or we could say also take place / event, origin, and relationship. And sorry for my terrible handwriting, but so that's more of a roundabout way to learn it. And for me, that is way too much memorization and way too much thinking to go through for one single sentence. So my way to think about it is estar is a verb that you use generally for things that can change, and ser is generally a word that you use when things cannot change. And I'll explain it a little bit further. So when something can change, my two rules that I think about when I'm thinking about what verb to use are, can this change from one moment to the next? And can it change and then change right back just as easily? So let's look at something like position. if you are on this side of the room, and then you can very easily decide, I'm going to go walk to the other side of the room, and then you can walk right back. That can change from moment to moment, and that can change and then change right back again. So that's an Estar verb right there.
Yeah, I'm going to point out something really fast. So 2 things, and then you can just carry right on, but if you don't mind.
Yeah, totally. Go for it.
Sweet. So I think that this list is the most helpful actually to go through and apply your rule and see how it works, and then you can almost just like forget the list.
That's what exactly.
Internalize the rule itself, and that's the only way it's going to become automatic is by making these points somehow coalesce into a cohesive understanding.
Exactly. That's 100% what I'm trying to do right now. That's why. So I went a little bit too far to say that the list is not useful. The list is definitely useful to get your understanding of that rule. But once you have that, basically it's a tool to make you understand a rule that is a little bit more abstract if you just try to learn it as a rule. So we're going to go through with these specific examples. So like I said, for position, because that's something that can change from one moment to the next without any real forethought or any real preparation, and it can change and then change right back again, then we're going to say that's an Estar verb. So for position and location, those are very, very similar to me. We're going to go action. Something está ocurriendo. That's like using a gerund, or that's like using the perfect tense, an action that is continuously happening. Something can be happening, and then something can stop happening. Like I can be playing the guitar, and then I can decide to stop playing the guitar. That is an action. That's a drawn out action that's happening over a long period of time that can stop, or it can start again. So that's going to go with estar also. All right, so condition.
Okay, so this happens to me all the freaking time. La rueda está pinchada is like the wheels popped, right? And I have this cool bike service in Salamanca. I pay 13 euros a year, and I can grab a bike and go all over the city and then just leave it at this bay and lock it up.
That's actually badass.
And they're not really well serviced. So I'm like riding, and there'll be a micro fucking scopic curb, and I'll hit it, and it's like... And so I'm going, oh, okay, well, lucky it was only my back tire, not like both of them. I did both of them. And anyways, this is a total condition of that tire. Why do we know that? Because literally, like a fraction of a second ago, it wasn't popped. And guess what? Tomorrow, that tire's going to be repaired. It may be a different one, in which case we don't have to talk about that. But odds are the company's going to come out, see that there's a flat docked in C24, and they're just going to repair it. Mm-hmm. So then the condition changes. And I don't know if this is just being like really repetitive, but you can think about it as simply as, is this some like conditional state that it isn't always in? You know,
yes.
And the fact that just a moment ago it was full of air and not leaking should kind of indicate that answer.
Yeah, and I'm going to go along with that, like la puerta está abierta. Like that is a condition of the door. The door in one moment can be closed. Someone can come along and open it. Now it is open, but then someone can just as easily come along and close the next second. It doesn't require any preparation, and so I guess the going back isn't necessary, but it doesn't require any preparation to open the door. Therefore, it is a condition, and we use the star. So let's go on to emotion. Also, emotion, that's a very easy one. If I'm going to say I am happy, well, happiness, that can come and can go. I can be sad, and then something can happen to me, and I can be happy. And then the next moment, for whatever reason, I can remember something sad that happened, and I can be sad. Emotion can change very easily from moment to moment, and it can also change back. So that is something that we use Estar with. So basically, what I wanted to say are these, and again, I'm going to repeat myself, that what we use Estar with are things that can be changed without any sort of preparation. So then now I'm going to contrast that to kind of flesh out the idea a little bit more with the other side, with ser. So I'm going to use my first, and obviously we have the list here, but I'm just going to go with the first example that pops into my mind. If you say this guy is a lawyer, es un abogado. You can't say está un abogado, and then you're saying, Mike, I know, but hold on, someone can be a lawyer and then they can't be a lawyer. And if they get fired, then they're no longer a lawyer, so it can change. I'm not trying to say that things with Sarah can't ever change, but they can't change as readily. If you want to be a lawyer, there's a lot of preparation that goes into that. It's not like 1 minute you're just thinking, that you're sitting there thinking, and the next minute, all of a sudden you're a lawyer. That's not how it works. You have to be studying, you have to go to law school. That's why it's a more complicated process. It's not just one moment to the next.
The means, or like the amount of work you have to go through to actually bar a lawyer and have them have their lawyer's license revoked. That is such a strenuous process. Yeah. Like, you could literally be jailed and keep being a lawyer. Yeah. You can be fired and you're still a lawyer. Odds are your next job is actually going to keep being a lawyer, just at a different firm. So like, when it's a hard characteristic to change and you're not sure which to lean towards, safe bet, Sarah.
I'm going to go off of the first one in this list with description. And I think description pretty well covers most of the other examples in that doctor list. How would you describe somebody? If you're describing them to a friend, would you describe how they're feeling right now? If you're trying to describe like one of your friends to another buddy, would you describe that they're a happy person right now, like that they're happy right now, that they're sad right now? Would you describe where they currently are, not like where they live, but like where they
not where
actually,
not where
he's
they live,
in the gym right now. I'm trying to describe Andrew. I'm like, oh, Andrew is right now, he's happy. He's right now lifting weights, and he right now is in the gym. Those aren't descriptions of you. Those are descriptions of things about you that change very quickly, you know?
Yeah.
But versus if I'm actually trying to describe Andrew, I'd be like, es un guiri, es americano, you know, and I'd be like, es alto, you know, I'd be describing things about him that don't change. So if you're basically think about it, if you're trying to describe your friend to someone, what are the things that you would mostly say? You would say he is a teacher, he is tall, he is American, and those are all with Sarah, because those are things that those are characteristics about him that don't change as readily.
Yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest and say the word descriptions I don't really like, because you can like describe people according to like their condition. Like, describe is such a big word or umbrella terms. Like,
it is.
You can describe how they feel. You know,
well, I know
like
you
this
can't.
person is happy.
You
so
can't.
That's why I don't really. I think it's just there to kind of complete the acronym. But your rule really helps to tack down if that description ought to be Sarah or Estar. Because if I could play devil's advocate. I remember being a beginner and being thoroughly confused when a teacher would say, okay, for like descriptions, you're going to want to do this. And then I would think, as far as my understanding goes, like a description is anytime you're trying to like kind of paint an image, and that could be entirely conditional. What if I'm talking about something just in the now?
Yeah, and so in a
broad... like, with this word, I see a bit of a problem, and that's why you guys will just want to listen to or apply his rule.
Well, no, I mean, I definitely know what you're saying. That description is a very broad word. That's why I tried to frame it a little bit more. And if you are describing, yes, obviously anything is a description, but if you are talking about your friend to a third friend that doesn't know them at all, what are the ways that you're going to describe them? You're going to be like, Andres is currently happy in this moment. Yes, that is a description, but like, so I guess maybe I could come up with a better word, but I'm just trying to explain the idea of like, if you wanted someone to know about your other friend, you would tell them.
What if we say something more like ongoing qualities? You know, like things that aren't they're not subject to change, or as you put it earlier, without effort.
Yeah, without effort, without kind of a process going on there.
The process is even better, just because it could be a process that's occurring without any person actually having to apply effort.
Yeah,
it could just be time that's actually causing Sarah to be appropriate in the context.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Okay, so rather than the description, we'll say ongoing qualities. I'm going to go down one more. I'm going to say, well, characteristic is more or less a description, like es alto, es moreno.
Is just going over the same thing, right?
Characteristic and description.
Like Andrew's tall, Andrew's American.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go down to time and date. And again...
Okay, this is stick your brain in a blender.
This one is a little bit more...
handle this one.
This one is a little bit more complicated because obviously time does change, and time doesn't require any sort of an effort by anybody to keep going forward. But think about it in this way. It can't be 4 o'clock and then all of a sudden it's 2 o'clock again. It can't go and then change right back. And although it doesn't require any effort by someone, it is a process to change time. Time doesn't just skip around. The whole thing is a process. So I feel like it is one that it's maybe not quite as, it's maybe a little bit more complicated to think about. It doesn't make quite as much sense right from the beginning, but it's just time changing is definitely a process, and it can't skip to the future and then back to the past. So then for me, that's the way that, at least that's the way that my brain justifies time and date being there. And we have in parentheses here too, I also want to say that take place / event. So although position is used with the star, bigger events are actually used with ser. So if we're saying Andrew is in the gym, Andrés está en el gimnasio. But if I say the party is in the pavilion,
or the cycling class is in the gym.
Yeah.
So you can see how it just all it does is depend on if there's going to be some characteristic, something to it doesn't have to be so big. I was thinking about this when we talked before about the concert being really large. So maybe this helps for them to think about it. But
well, it's listen.
I know you can also say la clase es en ese lugar.
Yeah, but because the class doesn't have legs. Each person in the class has legs, and they can move, and they can walk over there, and they can walk over there. The class itself is more of an abstract concept. It doesn't have legs. It can't stand up and walk over here or over there. The class is more of an idea that it is always here. It's repeated. It doesn't change. Yeah, so I would say
so this kind of winds us back to we're a description or a characteristic of the class.
Yeah, and it's not something that can readily change.
We're not talking about its orientation in space compared to anything else, and it actually doesn't have to do with being located in the gym as far as positioned in the gym and it's in the corner or next to another class, which is again spatial, but instead it's just this very bullet point quality of the class.
Yeah.
This is where it takes place.
Yeah.
It's almost like calling it an American, where it comes from.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, I like that. All right, so origin. This actually takes us right into origin, like Andres was saying, although it can be a little bit complicated to think about this because it is talking about kind of position or location if you think about it in one way. But in the other way, it's not a position or location that can be changed. You are from this place or you are from another place. So that's always
one way that I
same.
think about it, and this is something, I'm actually lying. I just thought of this. So I don't think about it this way, but I just had this inversion of ways of looking at it. So when you think about using estar and then if a place, then that's him being in Argentina. But if you use ser, Argentina is part of him.
Yeah.
It's more inside of this person. It's completely irrelevant where he's at, but Argentina is a part of that guy. I don't know if to me it seemed it just blew my mind to have Argentina rather, if you were to draw a picture and put a man on the map, then you would explain that he is there. But if you put Argentina drawn inside of the frame of a human being, then you would say Argentina is basically him.
Okay. I was going to have a devil's advocate point there, but actually I can think about this in a way that makes sense. We're going to go back to something that you can use either ser or estar with certain adjectives. You can use ser or estar, and it means two slightly different things. And I'm going to describe this in exactly the way that Andres is saying. Is if you say, Es alegre versus está alegre. If you say está alegre, that is, he's more in happiness. His whole being is like, you can think of yourself like, when you're happy, it's almost like something that's objectively happening all around you. You feel it so much that you're like almost in this state. There you go. It's like in a state of happiness. So like, think about putting the little figurine of yourself in the state, in the big circle, in the state of happiness. But then if you say, es alegre, es una persona alegre, he is generally a happy person, you think about that little figurine of happiness, generally, and you put that inside of his character. So things that are with ser, you think about, and that goes back to what he was saying, what Andres was saying about like location right now.
You just saved my ass, Mike, because I like that breakdown quite a bit more.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. So that goes back to the position versus like the origin where you're from. If position is with a star, and you think about taking the little figurine and putting them inside of a little country. But with ser, then es argentino, es americano, you take that characteristic and you put that inside of them. That's a very interesting way to think about it that I had not previously thought about it before. That is very interesting. I like that.
Yeah, it just kind of like leapt into my head where it seemed like really profound. It's kind of hard to put into words, and it's not so profound, but just to have like a little figurine, where either you put it in the country or you put the country back in him, you know, like it's not that deep. Dude.
No, I like that. I like it actually a lot, and I really do like that a lot. So the last example on the doctor acronym sheet is relationship. And again, that's just something that can't really change. Es mi hermano, he is my brother. He's always been my brother. He's always going to be my brother. Maybe we fight sometimes, but the relationship is not going to change. And then on top of that, like Andres is saying, it doesn't have to be a familiar relationship per se, but it can also be like, es mi coche, that is my car. And yes, you can sell a car, but that is more of a process. That's something that has to occur over a long period of time. That's just not moment to moment like that.
Yeah, and another thing is like, instead of saying es su taza de café, you know, like it's her coffee cup, you could say like es de ella, you know, like every time you're drawing some kind of relationship of possession, regardless of how you kind of format it, I think we're always going to use ser. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I'm quite sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so that is us basically talking about ser versus star. These are concepts probably a little bit more analogous to the things that we tend to talk about when we're just hanging out by ourselves, and I think that's going to be the way we're going in the future with those Guiris, kind of. You know, we had to give more of a broader explanation.
Because I feel like I learned so much just actually talking about it and then hearing how my points kind of like connect with yours or where they're weak, honestly. Like, this is going to be so advantageous for me, homie.
This is something that definitely, not that I haven't enjoyed all of the ones that we've done so far, but this is more of like exactly what I get super excited about talking about.
Okay, so after that hellacious round of ser versus Estar, it's time for the wrap-up. And again, so Michael's just saying that you want to look at everything in one way. There's like a scope. And if you can figure out whether or not this thing, for me the word is conditional, but that aside, if this thing can change on a dime and then especially change back, that's your indicator. That's your goal. It means that you're using a star. We gave the instance of a popped tire. In one moment, it's inflated. In another second, it's deflated. And then, if it's like a description, quality, or you can run through the list again, then you're gonna use ser. But for the most part, I think that's the best approach and the best way of looking at whether or not you should pick between these two really tough verbs. Because in English, let's face it, we don't have them. We just got to be. And it's nice, but with a little bit of practice, any Guiri can be successful in picking whether it's about to be ser or Estar in the sentence. So, hope you guys liked the episode. Mike, you got anything to rant and rave about before we go?
That's it, man. We got 9 seconds before we gotta call it. So I think that's about it. Hasta la próxima, chicos. 2, 1, oh God, oh no, it's beeping. It's beeping, delete. All right, hey, from both of us here at Dos Guiris Sin Guía, hasta la próxima, chicos.
Ciao for now, guys.